Hello fellow CNC nuts and welcome. Today I'm going to show you how I make this letter opener. It's been quite a while since I've used the parallel rule, but for this project I will be double siding this board, so I need a way of setting it on the table and flipping it over once I'm ready. I've pre-drilled a 3mm hole in the centre of the board to match the 3mm cutter on my router. I'll now bring the router in to an origin point that I selected earlier, and I'm just going to drop the cutter down like so, so it's in the hole, and I'll now clamp the piece of board up like so. I can remove the parallel rule and put in the second clamp. Now, before the cutter is removed from the hole, I need to make sure that my X and Y are set to 0. And now that they are, I can lift the cutter out and carefully zero the cutter down to the surface of the material, which I will also set to 0. There we are. Return it to the origin point, and we're now ready to start cutting. Now the toolpath we just completed here makes up the blade of our paper knife, and it's called a fluted toolpath. Basically it's just a series of lines spaced 1mm apart all the way along the blade, which I've asked to flute, and that means go from a set depth, in this case 0, the surface of the material, down to a depth of 1.5mm. And that's what it's done. It's done each one and angled down in a linear fashion from 0 to 1.5mm below the surface. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the cutter in and set it back to our origin point. Now I have to be careful how I turn this over. It's being flipped like so. I'm just going to put the piece of material up onto the cutter, and I can just drop the cutter down to the table. There. I can now bring in my parallel rule make that up to the edge of my material, bring in the clamp and clamp it down. Put on the second clamp and clamp it down as well. We can now load the second file and start cutting. What I need to do now is take the cutter off to the side here and just set it on the tabletop. And with that just touching the tabletop, I'm going to call that -8mm. This time it's going to start by creating a pocket in our material to take it down to 3mm, the final thickness of our paper knife. It will then do a fluted toolpath for the blade, and it should meet up with the blade on the other side. Then finally cut round what's left to create the knife shape. Let's have a look at how it's come out. I've loaded a piece of 3mm pine and I'm now going to cut some handles. Now you can be as fancy with the handles as you like. I've chosen to go with just something plain like this, and I think it'll look quite good when it's done. So I'm now going to glue them on. The glue's now had a chance to dry, and the pieces now need a good sanding. I've had a think about it and I've decided that I'm going to coat these in teak oil to finish them off rather than a varnish at this stage. If I feel a varnish is needed later on, then I'll do that, but the teak oil should bring up the colour of the wood more than a varnish. And there we have it, a pair of completed letter openers. I'll put a link in the description box below to where you can download the files should you wish to make some of your own. All that remains for me to do is to thank you for watching, and if you haven't already done so, why not subscribe to me on YouTube? You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter and Google+. In the meantime, keep those machines running, guys, and I'll catch you later. Cheers! If only people still sent letters.